Hey guys, welcome back to r/entitledparents. Imagine not seeing your parents for 10 years and then suddenly they are pounding on your door demanding to be let in. When you refuse, they call the police and claim that you are a dangerous criminal and that you are squatting in your own house that supposedly belongs to them. Let's dive right into the video. The first one is titled, "Entitled Parents Call Cops on Me Claiming I'm a Criminal Because I Locked Them Out of My House." Growing up, my parents used to treat me like I was their servant. As a kid, they never let me play or genuinely have fun. I was expected to do all the chores even at that age. Of course, I understand the necessity of giving kids chores as it teaches them responsibility, but I was not taught how to do the chores. They shoved the chores on me and expected everything to be done perfectly. If I didn't do it right, they would yell at me and hit me. Even worse, they did not help me at all and spent their days lazing around while I did the chores. When I reached high school and got a job, I was expected to give them the entirety of my paychecks while still completing all the household chores. When I was old enough, my parents forced me to cook for them. If I didn't cook a meal they liked or cooked it wrong, they would throw all the food on the floor and force me to clean it up. They were genuinely like evil step-parents like the mother from Cinderella, except I was unfortunately blood-related to them. I had no siblings, so I had no one else to help me. Honestly, I don't think my parents even wanted kids, much less me, so that's probably why they treated me so badly. They did not let me contact my grandparents or relatives, so I had no one to reach out to. I always tried telling them how upset they made me by doing this, but they would just shut me down and tell me that I had to do it because they spent years raising me. By the time I graduated high school, I was completely done with their nonsense. I had grown up thinking that what they did was relatively normal, even if it made me feel like crap, but as I began making friends whose parents were not so entitled, I soon realized that my parents were horrible people trying to take advantage of me. I wanted to move away so badly, but with my parents taking all of the money from my paychecks, and they knew exactly how much I made, so if I tried to hide any, they would take it, I was not able to save up money for college. Luckily, I had high grades in high school, so I was offered a scholarship at a college around 3 hours away from my hometown. That saved me the trouble of having to take out a loan. I had a friend going to the same college, so we rented an apartment and split the rent. I found a new job in this new city and began working along with my studies. I cut contact with my parents using college as an excuse to not contact them. For some reason, they were content with their only mate out of the house. I decided to become a lawyer and now I work for a decent law firm and make a comfortable amount of money. During college, I opened a savings account and placed money in there every month as it accumulated some interest. I paid off the loans I took out for law school a few years after I graduated and then took out a mortgage to buy a house which I then paid off within a few years as well. I say all this to emphasize that everything I've worked for in my life I achieved on my own without the help of my parents. This will be important for later. One night I was organizing some files in my home office when I heard a lot of banging on my door. I was very confused, assuming that it was the police or something like that. I went to my front door to check who it was, and I was shocked to find that it was my parents. Mind you, I had not seen them in 10 years. Even through the peephole, I could tell that they had aged. Maybe all the work they were forced to do when I was gone caught up to them. What was even more shocking though, however, was the fact that they had found out where I lived. Like I said, I hadn't contacted them since I moved out, so there was no way they could have found out where I lived. They kept banging on the door again, so I opened the door just a little bit so that I could see and speak to them, but not so much that they could be let in. They tried acting all sweet with me, all smiles and happy faces. "Is that really you? I cannot believe how long it's been." All that jazz, but I was not having any of it. I asked them why they were here, but they just ignored me and said that I should let them in. I immediately refused and told them to leave. Their demeanor instantly changed from sweet to angry. They insisted that they deserved to come inside because they had raised me and that I was a horrible son for not telling them where I lived. They continued by saying that they had a right to visit whenever they pleased. I was tired of their nonsense and figured that they wouldn't be convinced to leave, so I just shut the door in their faces. However, even through the shut door, I could hear my mother screaming about how I have abandoned them. I shouted back at them to leave or else I would call the police. I still had papers to organize and I already had a long day, so I gave them 15 minutes to get out. I returned upstairs, organized my things and then went down once the 15 minutes were up. But when I looked outside again, they were literally sitting on my porch looking like grumpy toddlers waiting for me to open the door. They noticed that I was back and began pounding on the door, begging for food, water, shelter, claiming that I could not treat them so horribly because they were my parents. I had enough of this and made sure to lock the doors and windows and to close all the blinds. I know I had threatened to call the police, but I did not want to deal with all that, and I guess some part of me felt bad at the idea of calling the cops on the people who sort of raised me, so I just decided to let them leave on their own, and if they did not by the morning, then I would call the cops myself. I tried to relax by watching some TV in my bedroom. About half an hour later, my doorbell rang. I assumed it was my parents again, so I simply ignored it. However, it rang again and I heard someone shout that they were the police. It was not the voice of my dad or my mom, so I figured it must have been a real cop. I went down and opened the door to find 2 officers and my parents standing behind them. I asked what the problem was and the cops explained that my parents called saying a criminal was squatting in their home and was trying to steal their property. I explained to the cop that those were my parents as they didn't think that we were related before and that they were not even from the city. I told them that we hadn't been in contact for years and that they were now begging me to let them in even after I told them several times to leave. I even offered to show them my property deeds, but the officers believed me wholeheartedly for some reason and said that there was no need. They asked my parents if it was true that I was their son and my parents conceded, saying that I was mentally unstable and had to be taken home. Obviously, the cops could tell that I was not mentally unstable, and because my parents lied and changed their story, the cops realized that my parents were in the wrong here. They warned my parents against making false police reports and commanded them to leave. And to my surprise, they actually listened. They did not show up the next day and I thought that was the end of it, but that night they came back again. I didn't realize it at first. It was about 9 in the evening and I was about to go to sleep when I heard something like a bang coming from downstairs. I was wary and honestly a little bit paranoid, so I headed downstairs to check out what it was. There was nothing inside my house, so I suspected that whatever it was coming from the outside. I then went upstairs to look out the window and I saw my parents trying to get into the front door again. This time my dad had a crowbar and he was trying to pry the door open. Immediately, I dialed 911 and informed them that they were trying to break into my house. The cops arrived within minutes. You should have seen the look on my parents' faces when the red and blue lights and sirens went on. It was hilarious. When the cops handcuffed them, I exited my house and expressed my shock that they were trying to break into my house. My parents, namely my mother, started throwing a tantrum saying that I was being heartless for letting them arrest me and that they were just trying to stay with me because they cared. I scoffed at this and told them that they've never cared for me, not once, and that they were just being the entitled people I always knew them as. I then went down to the police station and gave them my statement. They informed me that my parents would be charged for trespassing and attempted unlawful entry if I decided to press charges. I was so tired of that crap that I immediately said, no, I won't press charges because I want to defend my parents. Obviously, I'm just kidding. OP said yes to the charges. We went to court for this, and in court I find out how they discovered where I lived. Apparently, they did a lot of digging for this, which is kind of creepy because it was stalkerish. They had seen an ad for my law firm and noticed that I was one of the lawyers, so they decided that they wanted to contact me. They did not state the reason, but I suspect it was because they wanted to butter me up, but could be biased though. They searched up my name and tried finding information about me, eventually landing on my address through some public records. I was also wondering why they were so desperate to get to my house. I thought maybe that the old house got taken or something like that, but no, they just wanted to get in because they felt entitled to do so. No surprise there. For their charges, my parents would have to spend a year in county jail, so at least they won't be able to bother me for a year. But for safe measure, I also got a restraining order against them. Even if they're in jail for a year, who is to say that they won't continue harassing me after they get out? I made sure to get that done before they were taken to jail. It's been 2 months since then, and I've been in virtual peace. It felt honestly surreal seeing my parents again, and I thought it would be a little more upset about the idea of sending them to jail, but honestly, I don't care. My parents had not cared for me ever, and how I feel about them was most definitely brought upon themselves. The one good thing to come out of this though is the fact that I finally got to show my parents the success I've built without their help. All of this, my house, my job, my education, I had it because of my own hard work. And the next one is another story about absolutely ridiculous, insane parents. It is titled, "This is my last weekend with my family and they don't even know it." Don't get me, 18 male, wrong. I love them, but they expect me to spend the rest of my life here in the projects, joining my dad at his work. They never wanted me to leave the house, let alone the state. I remember a few months ago when we were talking about college, they looked at me like I am crazy. My dad got so pissed off he was yelling at me, and my mom was basically guilt-tripping me ever since about abandoning my family when they raised me, so the least I could do was to stay to help my dad in his business. That is not the life I want though. For years they always kind of decided that I'm not doing anything else except this. So they don't even know that I started applying at different colleges or that I've got a full scholarship. Couldn't even share that news with them because they would lose their mind. My girlfriend and I already found an apartment to move in together closer to campus, which is like 20 hours away from here. Our summer classes start in over a week, so we decided this is gonna be our last weekend here so we can have time to move. I'm not taking a lot with me except my clothes and important papers. She told me I should tell them since we're already leaving anyways, but I don't have the heart to do it. To be honest, I don't want today and tomorrow to be fighting or them being sad or mad with me. I want our last weekend to be normal before I gotta leave. Just hope they can accept my choice in the future. Edit, we are on the road. I'll post more updates on the details later. Also, some comments from OP, the project is just what you call government housing neighborhoods for people with low income. Thank you, it sucks that I couldn't even share the most exciting news of my life with them. My girlfriend's parents took us out to eat to celebrate us both getting accepted with scholarships. I legit cried when they told me they were proud of me because it made me wish that was my parents saying it even more. Regarding his dad, I've already told him before that his business is not what I want to get into, so they really are not the same. About his girlfriend, she's going to the same university too. Except she's majoring in psychology and I'm doing business economics. About his parents' views, so one of my teachers called it the lobster effect. You know, putting lobsters in a spot, one lobster is at the top and can get out but keeps being pulled back down by the other lobsters. And growing up in the projects, I've seen a bunch of guys barely out of high school who are still here. It always scared the crap out of me. And it is not that I'm embarrassed or think I'm better, like I know where I come from, it's my home, but I can't not leave. Update to the story, so I added in my last post that my GF and I were on the road already, but I'll say more later. Here it is. The whole thing went as hard as I expected it. I mentioned in another comments, my parents thought all we were doing was going on a camping trip with my GF's family for a few days. When I hugged them to say bye, they thought this was still a camping trip. Like an hour-ish in, I FaceTimed with them to say the truth. We pulled over so I could talk to them outside the car. My dad was yelling, my mom was crying. He couldn't believe that he raised me to be this selfish with them. All my mom could say was that she cannot even look at me right now since I basically picked school over my family. It broke my heart, to be honest, but it made me glad that we didn't have this talk in person because it would have hurt a million times worse. Trying to tell them I'm not abandoning them and I want them to be part of this journey with me just did not work. Nothing I said worked at all. My mom completely left the conversation, so it was only my dad, and all he had left to say was, I better not expect help from them ever in the future because help is for family and I've shown them I'm not family anymore. He hung up on me there. They have not sent any other messages since yesterday, and my girlfriend was the best supporter here. I cried it out and she was hugging me the whole time until we got back on the road again. Right now, I feel like the movie Tangled, going through different stages between happy and guilty. I'm trying not to focus too much on my family, just to be excited for the future. We are taking the scenic route going up the Pacific Coast Highway, and last night we made it to Santa Barbara to spend the night. We, by the way, took a detour to the beach this morning, and we are on our way now to this little place called Solvang to look around for a bit. It's been fun so far. We want to make it a memorable experience, so we are going to be making a few more stops along the way just to look at everything. We'll probably be making it in 2 or 3 days, but we still have time to settle in before the classes start. Still sad obviously, but we are enjoying the drive together. I really appreciated everyone's support here. Did not respond to everyone, but I've read almost all of your comments here. One last comment from OP, yeah, I've known for a long time that they just were not gonna accept it. I'm trying to have an it is what it is attitude about it and hope maybe things can be different in the future. Unfortunately, there have been no further updates from OP, so yeah, at least he escaped his family, so to say, if you can call it that, but it doesn't seem like there's a happy ending in regards to a family reunion or something. Let me know what you think about this story in the comments. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I'm sad to say that I live within an HOA, and despite not being a member, that does not prevent me from getting harassed just as much, if not more, than the people who are actual members. Mostly them trying to get me to join and give them money by bugging me. That kind of thing just makes me want to join something less the more that I'm being pushed to do it. What doesn't help them is the fact that any member I speak to that is not part of the board regrets joining and is not shy to admit that fact. There are some members who actively try and stop us non-members from making the same mistakes they did and join, with the biggest problem being that a Karen seems to run the show and is unbearable to members, constantly bothering them and holding the threat of fines over their head for the audacity to disagree with her. Mainly, she likes to let her kids run wild, and if anybody tries to complain to her about it, she will remind them of her position, thinking that being in charge of an HOA makes her so super special, like she is the queen or something. I've heard horror stories about her, but in the past she has been fake nice to me in order to try and get me to join her HOA. Now, I've been legally blind since I was about 15 years old, and my vision since that point has just gotten worse. It is not the stereotypical everything is black, but I basically cannot make anything out at this point, even with my super thick glasses. I qualified for a service dog and was on the waitlist for a long time, since they had to be trained and all of that stuff. Anyway, I got one and was very happy for the day-to-day tasks to become easier for me. I had gotten to the point that going out alone was just dangerous, because even with my cane it was hard to tell if a car was coming or just things not in arm's length being a potential issue. My dog's name was Mia, and she was amazing. We became best friends right away. Some people don't realize that a service dog is not working 24/7, they need time at home to just be a normal dog too, and for the two of us to bond. Karen got wind that I had a dog in the neighborhood, and she was not happy about it. She had a hatred of dogs and was not afraid to publicly share that information with every single person around her. To her, dogs were all vicious animals that wanted to attack children and spread around disease. She actually had gone on a rant in the past about dogs being plague carriers, and having dogs in the neighborhood would mean that people were going to get actual plague and die. Me having a dog did not escape her knowledge for long, and when I was out for a walk with my dog, she had to run into me. I really believe she was following me, but that was just a feeling. Karen, what are you doing with that creature? Me, you mean my dog? I'm going down to the store to get some things. There's a little shopping center a few blocks away in walking distance. Karen, there's a strict no-dog policy in this neighborhood. I'm the one that put that bylaw into action, in fact. Me, good for you, I guess. Karen, get rid of it. It's the rules that you cannot have one. Me, well, first of all, my dog is a she, not an it, and second, I'm not an HOA member, which you know, meaning I don't need to follow your rules. Finally, and most importantly, she is a service dog, so she cannot be banned from anything. Karen, a service dog? You're pretending to be disabled to get past the rules, huh? How disgusting. Me, I am blind. You've seen me many times walking with a cane. You know that I'm blind. Karen, blind people don't wear glasses. Get rid of that thing or I'm going to. Me, come near my dog and I will call the cops on you. I went to the store and a few weeks passed by without anything drastic happening. We got on a schedule, and before bed I would always let Mia outside to empty her bladder one last time before bed. This time though she seemed to be taking longer to get inside, and I tried to navigate the dark lawn in order to find her. Calling her name, and she ran right up to me back in service dog mode. However, she was chewing on something. I questioned what she was chewing and told her to drop, which she did. Now, I wouldn't have even known Karen was on my property since it was so dark, but she just had to open her mouth. She told me that I was nasty for not letting my dog enjoy a nice treat, admitting that she had given my dog something to eat. We went back inside, and within the hour, Mia started to get very sick and I knew something was wrong. I managed to get us a ride to the emergency vet, who ran tests and ended up having to pump her stomach. She had eaten some of what Karen gave her, which I learned at that point was beef. beef that also had cleaning chemicals on it because that is what was in her system. So Karen had basically tried to poison my dog just because she did not want her in the neighborhood. I was crying even though the vet said that Mia was gonna be fine. By the next day I had contacted a lawyer who knew about the laws regarding service animals and tampering with one. They are considered medical devices and messing with one is on the same level as if you like smashed some old lady's oxygen tank or stole a wheelchair. It's a lot bigger deal than if she had done the same thing to a dog that was just a pet. I took her to court and had charges pressed against her for what she did. My lawyer spoke to the DA about what happened and gave proof of some printed things she had in some HOA newsletter talking about the dangers of dogs, going so far in it to claim that all dogs should be killed. She did not have much of an argument against what she had done, and the fact that her own ego was what got her caught was what amazed me. If she had said nothing and walked off, I would have never known how Mia got the poisoned food. She did try to argue that I was not a reliable witness because I was blind, and just wow, now you admit that I am blind when it benefits you, Karen. They believed me, and after being questioned, she did end up caving and admitting that she fed my dog what she called a treat. Now she was also claiming that she didn't know it had poison on it, but nobody was believing her story. It was clear that she didn't want me to have a dog in the neighborhood, and the previous threat she made was enough. She probably would have loved a plea deal at this point, but nobody was offering her one anymore. She had refused one earlier, and now she was going to get what she deserved. She got a prison sentence, which I was very happy about. I know that most of the time people don't serve the full time, but honestly, her being in prison at all seemed like proper revenge. I can only hope that people in there consider messing with animals the same way they see criminals that mess with kids. A bottom-of-the-barrel kind of person that is not going to make friends or have a decent time at all. Mia had a full recovery, and the incident is behind both of us. I did change where I let her out onto being the smaller backyard just so I could be sure nobody else was going to come up to her. My life is much better now with her in it and with Karen out of it. And before we end the video, let's read one last story from r/pettyrevenge. It is titled Sold Our House. So this was about 5 years ago. Our house was just 1 year old and was a smart home. We had 2 dogs that were washed every week and completely housebroken. So we sold the house and paid to have the house cleaned and the carpets cleaned after we were out. Move forward about 3 weeks and we received a letter from the couple that bought our house. They basically said that the carpets smelled like dogs so bad they could not let their newborn crawl on the carpets. They went on to say that they pulled up all the carpets in the house and they think we should volunteer to pay for it since they have a newborn. They wanted $10,000. At first I thought it was a joke and called my realtor, who had been there many times, and she said that was absolutely ridiculous and we were not obligated to give them a dime. Instead, my husband decided to quietly pay them back. As I mentioned, it was a smart house and he still had the app to control the AC and lights to the house. He would turn their heat up at night and turn the AC down during the day. Not too awful, but just enough to make them uncomfortable. It was just a perfect level of petty for greedy people. And by the way, my hubby didn't give them any money, also we didn't mess with the temps too much, just 2 or 3 degrees. I did say newborn, but I meant toddler. And yeah guys, thank you for watching, please don't forget to like the video, and I will see you again tomorrow.